If you're into Game Boy, there's a good chance you'll like my new Neo Geo Pocket Color series too. Every Thursday I'm reviewing a new Neo Geo game. Just join the POCubed Patreon or become a channel member here on YouTube. We have a colossal RPG to play next week, and I mean colossal. Just as a hint, it's probably the first game you think of when you're asked to name a Game Boy Advance RPG. Still, that doesn't mean that we can neglect this week's title, which, funnily enough, also happens to be one of the role-playing persuasion. This time it's a standalone game that doesn't appear to belong to any larger franchise or even be based off an anime. A fairly unusual occurrence, but one I quite welcome actually, as it cuts down on the amount of background research I need to do. I would like to take a little look at both the developers and the publishers here because I've never heard of either of them. Amedio's repertoire is short and fairly simple. They did a bunch of Japanese exclusive mini-sports titles and stuff like card games, largely on the original PlayStation after the turn of the millennium, by which point of course the PlayStation 2 was out. Publishers Media Rings have a bit longer of a history, but by far a weirder one. They were involved a fair bit in the TurboGrafx 16 library, including their 04 Champ series of racing games, as well as the somewhat infamous Toilet Kids, which might be up there as one of the worst names for a video game of all time, and a concept not that much better to be honest. So yeah, that's them. Set in the charmingly strange world of the Kigurumians, these people who live in Kigurumi costumes. You know, these animal onesies that you've probably seen before. I mean, they do look comfy, but I don't know if I'd want to wear one to work or the grocery store or something. Each to their own, I guess. Anyway, aside from that, the premise here is fairly standard. A vast, peaceful land was once plunged into conflict by a shadowy organization bent on world domination. The Kigurumians banded together and defeated them though, and in the aftermath, 2 babies were entrusted to the Village of Hope alongside a dragon amulet to ensure the peace remained. Now you play as one of these kids, the boy called Blueberry Jam or the girl called Strawberry Parfait. Jam and Parfait for short. You'll travel across the world, visiting villages and towns, venturing into dungeons, so on and so forth. The idea is that you're treasure hunting for stuff to sell in the store which you and your sibling run. Now whichever one of the kids you don't pick stays home and mans the shop, and has little role in the actual storyline, which is a bit of a shame. Standard fare it may seem, but there is a little bit of a non-linear, branching path mechanic in play here. Sometimes you'll be asking around a village to find where you should be going next, and the destination you're given depends on which villager you obtain information from. Once you commit to a route, that becomes your path. The game even prompts you to save here just in case it's not to your liking. It's a modest mechanic to be sure, but gives the experience a little replayability beyond the standard cadence. Items discovered in dungeons can either be used yourself or sold in your own store. You can even decide the price, selling at full price, a 10% discount, or even a steeper 40% off. The cheaper you offer the things for, the quicker they'll sell. Of course, you can't just buy the items back once you've sold them. Customers typically don't like that IRL, and so if you sell something, it's gone forever. Don't flog something that you'll lament losing. Note that this is actually the only way to get money in this game. Monsters in the dungeons don't drop any, and you can't sell items to other shops. The game essentially forces you to return to your own store all the time, making the dungeon, treasure, sell loop very much the core of your advancement. Some might not like it, but I personally found it a refreshing departure from the norm. Speaking of monsters, called Nui Gurumin in this game, they don't just need to be beaten. In a Megami Tensei Gaiden Last Bible kind of way, if you remember that game, they can become your allies. After a battle is won, they may join up with you, but oddly they don't fight in the normal way. Instead, they're kind of treated like equipment. You can equip up to 2 monsters per ally, not on yourself, sadly, and they impart special skills to that character, also leveling up and developing themselves. Rather than you, the protagonist, being able to equip them, you instead gain special moves that change depending on what weapon you have, what level you are. The game utilized the short-lived and Japan-only mobile system GB service, which allowed you to offer up monster parts you had found for sale to other players, which at the time was quite an exceptional thing. Well, games had trading and stuff via the link cable, of course, but to be able to upload to a kind of server was basically not a thing on the Game Boy Advance. This shut down at the end of 2002, however, because simply nobody was using it. Too ahead of its time, you might say. With a charming cast of characters, some standard but well-designed graphics, and some impressive music actually, Zero Tours comes across as a lovely little game. It's fairly harmless, and in some ways, forgettable, if just for the sheer amount of competition the genre had on this console, but it's always nice to see something like this crop up and for it not to stink. It won't linger too long in the memory, unlike other lesser-known RPGs on the GBA such as Seema the Enemy or Oriental Blue. Oh gods, what a game Oriental Blue is, by the way, go check that video out. But there are some nice little ideas at play here. For two tiny companies with basically no RPG experience to put something like this together, and like I say, it doesn't suck, a lot of praise has to be given.